So Wicked Part 1 was directed by John M. Chu and it stars Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Yeoh, and Jonathan Bailey, and taking place way before the events of The Wizard of Oz, Elphaba, who would later become the Wicked Witch of the West, and Glinda, who would become Glinda the Good Witch, meet at Shiz University. At first they don't get along, but eventually they kind of learn to respect each other, become friends and such, and they learn a conspiracy is going on in the land of Oz that may turn their friendship around. This was a movie that I've been hearing about for a while, and this was a movie that seemed like there was a lot of buzz for this movie. I remember they debuted a trailer back at the Super Bowl months before this movie even, way before, like almost a year in advance. This was a movie that seemed like it was in development hell. So many people were involved at various points, and we finally got this movie, which is part one of the famous Broadway musical. Which I'm going to be honest, I have not seen the Broadway musical. I've never seen a Broadway play in my life, so I went in not really knowing like what to expect with a movie like this. But honestly, after watching it, I will admit I had a pretty good time with this movie. First off, let's start off with the acting. I thought a lot of the actors did a fantastic job, particularly the lead actors. Cynthia Erivo, I thought she did a really good job. Ariana Grande, surprisingly, I thought her character was very interesting. And I do like their dynamic throughout this entire movie. Obviously, at first, they kind of don't like each other, and like it's kind of understandable, like why they don't really like each other. And then, like, when they start forming their friendship and such, it does feel surprisingly believable. I actually thought that was very well done and well handled. Among the other supporting actors in this movie, Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh is always great, and I thought she did a really good job in this movie. Jeff Goldblum, he doesn't really appear in this movie a whole lot, but I thought his character was very interesting. I kind of want to see a lot more of him, hopefully in Wicked Part 2. Jonathan Bailey did a decent job. A couple of them have very interesting musical numbers and such, particularly Bailey, but also Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo. A lot of them have very interesting musical numbers and such. The musical numbers in this movie are astonishing. Like, I was watching this movie and I'm like, that is incredible right there. I am amazed that a lot of these musical numbers there's a lot of effort put into them, and there's actually a lot of, a lot of interesting ideas that are kind of thrown in, like, okay, let's see how we can do this and such, and like how things kind of happen, like one involving Jonathan Bailey in like a library and such. I thought that was very well done. When Galinda and Elphaba get to Oz and such, that was very well done. A lot of them are very well done. But also Defying Gravity, which, okay, I can understand why they kind of split this movie into two, because they wanted to end on that, and it was surprisingly well handled. I'm like, okay, I can kind of see why people actually like the musical and such. The music itself is very well done. They're sung pretty well for the most part. I will say that the production design and the costume design are incredible as well. Like, it looks a lot. It looks pretty practical from what I've seen from like the snippets and such from this movie, and they spared no expense with this movie. I was impressed. I want to walk through this version of Oz. It's very well done. The costume design, very well done as well. And admittedly, despite some of the things that kind of happened later on in this movie, I found myself laughing at various points in this movie. Particularly with Ariana Grande's character, I thought she had a lot of funny lines. Even Cynthia Erivo, who she's kind of like down in the dumps for a little bit. I thought she had a few lines every once in a while that kind of made me chuckle and such. Also, I do like a lot of the homages to The Wizard of Oz in a way, like from the opening Universal logo, which I thought was very well done, to other moments in the movie where it's like, okay, that's kind of a tie-in to the story of The Wizard of Oz and such. I thought that was very well handled. And also, I do think there are a lot of interesting callbacks, not necessarily callbacks, but like Easter eggs, I would say. A lot of the Easter eggs are very well done. There's one at the beginning when something is destroyed at the school, but then when you find out later on, like what's going on, you kind of think back to that moment. And you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Now that I look at it in different lights, I kind of like it when movies do that, where it's like you kind of watch it once and then you kind of find out something later on, and you kind of go back to the movie and you're like, oh, how did I not notice that to begin with? I thought that was very well done and very sneaky of you. Also, there's an Easter egg about two-thirds of the way through the movie, which I won't spoil because I'm pretty sure it's already been spoiled at this point. But there's a cameo that I thought was very well done. A couple cameos that I thought were very well done, which, having not seen the Broadway musical, I was like, okay, this is actually pretty good. And I actually understand the references and such. This is actually very well done. So I do think this is pretty fun overall. But let's talk about the couple things I don't like about this movie. And even though the movie itself is mostly about, Elphaba and Galinda kind of bonding and such and growing to respect each other and such, I felt like the movie felt a little aimless at times. Like, it both focuses a lot on their rivalry and eventually their eventual friendship and such, but it doesn't feel like there's really a plot for at least the first two-thirds of this movie. Like, there's a main idea is like, oh, this is the main issue that's going on in Oz and how Elphaba and Glinda kind of like become entangled in all that. The plot itself doesn't really come back for a while. It's like about an hour in when they do bring it back in. You're like, oh, right, I forgot about this. And it kind of made me think maybe they should have tightened up some of these scenes. Like, this movie is over 2.5 hours long. And honestly, I don't know if it needed to be over 2.5 hours long. Maybe 2 hours 15, 2 hours 20, maybe. Because, like, there are definitely some moments where, like, they probably could have cut this down a little bit. Maybe not the musical numbers themselves, but maybe some moments. And also, there are kind of a few nitpicks here and there that I was kind of watching, and I'm like, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, okay, so Ariana Grande has a crush, not a crush, someone has a crush on Glinda in this movie, who's from Munchkinland, and I just look at this person, I'm like, you are taller than Ariana Grande, and you're from Munchkinland. I don't get that. That is weird to me. I don't know why they went with that. And also, again, I feel like there are definitely a few pacing issues here and there. Like, obviously, with the musical numbers, I wouldn't cut those down, but I would tighten up some of the scenes in between there, maybe when it's not necessarily a musical number per se. Like, there are a couple where I'm like, this could have been, like, a couple minutes shorter, but maybe be 2.5 hours long at most. But overall, I would say I'm definitely impressed with Wicked Part 1, and I'm surprisingly more excited for Wicked Part 2 to kind of see what they're going to do with the second part of this movie. So I thought the acting was incredible, particularly from all the leads. I thought the production design, the costume design, the musical numbers themselves were very well done. I thought it could be funny, but it definitely takes itself seriously enough to the point where it's like, it doesn't overshadow it. I thought the relationship between the two leads was very well done. And I do like the homages to the Wizard of Oz, and I also do like some of the Easter eggs that are kind of thrown into this movie. And while I do feel like there are a couple pacing issues and a couple issues with the plot and such, and again, some nitpicks here and there, I would definitely recommend this. If you're a fan of the Broadway musical, I think you'll definitely enjoy this movie. And if you're not, I would still give this movie a chance at some point. So I'll give Wicked Part 1 3 out of 4 stars. See it. So, what's a Broadway musical that you want to see on the big screen? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.